Hello everybody, and something interesting's kind of happened, a minor revelation, if you will. There's recently been a show match between the devs and a couple of American streamers where the devs absolutely crushed them, and one notable event was the streamers losing in 1 minute. And that's just due to the fact that they had poor map knowledge. They didn't know about a certain route on Volskaya that could get you through areas very quickly. Yes, thank you, announcer lady. Thank you, Widowmaker. And they just didn't know about the route and got completely blindsided by it, which made me realise, hang on. Yeah, okay, people don't actually have map knowledge right now, so I'm going to show a few cool ways of getting around various maps. And the first one is going to be here on Temple of Anubis. I'm in a map on my own as the match starts, so we can just ignore that. First thing you've got to do is go up here, and you notice these holes? These actually go to a certain little area just past here. And you can actually quite easily go through this, and this is true for Pharah, this is true for Widowmaker, this is true for just about everyone you can imagine who can actually get through holes like this. I'll test in a moment if Junkrat can do it, but that actually looks like kind of a hard jump from this side at least for Junkrat to do. But Widowmaker could certainly just get up and over and camp the spawn. You can also use it to get some vision over here, you can use it to get some vision on this, you could use it even to get over this way. Shove a venom mine here, for example, come up here and get behind the enemy team very quickly. This is one of the cooler routes I know in Temple of Anubis. Other cool places on this map that people might not initially be aware of. First of all, you do need a movement ability of some sort to get over this bridge. Lucio can do it very easily as well, of course, by having a wall slide. You can get up onto this here. So this is actual usable terrain. I think this is as well. And also, something that most people don't seem to know about is the fact that you can just climb up on this very easily and jump down here. You can climb up on this, jump over here, and just a few little routes through the map. Let's try the Junkrat thing. So, first things first, can we get over it from this side? Oh, not quite immediately. I think we might have to go up here. Oh, there we go. So if you jump right, if you do it correctly, then yeah, you can get on top of this quite easily. And you can get through here. That'll bypass the point, get you perhaps behind an attacking team, if you are so inclined. This jump is going to be considerably harder. Just a tiny bit short. You might be able to do it with a double bomb. There we go. So the key is to actually be facing away from it when you're going in already. Now, keep in mind that that will cost you an extra 8 seconds to do that, but getting back here could be incredibly useful if they're very entrenched. For example, if you have a Bastion over here, he does so enjoy nesting in sort of these areas here. And getting rid of that could be extremely useful. So that's a little bit of Temple of Anubis. Let's go to the next map. And welcome to lovely Volskaya. Now, a lot of the movement options on this map are fairly predictable and obvious. For example, you have these moving platforms over here. They're very useful for sneaking in to this base. Important to note that you can jump up on this thing and just get up here nice and quickly and easily. There are a couple of cool movement options over there, but the first thing I'm going to show is, of course, the back route to the first point. This first point is surprisingly easy to take for a lot of teams. Once you break this first choke point, it gets really easy, and a good way to break that first choke point is by doing a back cap. Now, back capping is basically getting behind the team and starting a cap here, forcing the enemy team to react to you and come back to try and stop you. And you do that by going through here. Now, as Tracer, we're going to have to utilize our blinks, all 3 of them, to get across here. That does mean that you can't use it getting out of there, for example. You can, however, I do believe, do this. Then by the time you come here, the 3rd blink will be back. So you can go fairly quickly straight to here, get behind the enemy team, then you have access to all that lovely choke point back here. Another important thing on this map is there is an exit from the spawn here. A lot of people just don't seem to know this even exists, and that can lead you into this building here. This building here is an important little area simply because a lot of teams do like to set up like a Widowmaker up here, or a Bastion occasionally will set up here and just going straight to here and clearing that out can be very important for that first push on your team. Other than that, an important thing on this map is that this is the main entrance, and going through here is often suicide. You should only really attempt this entry if you have something like a Reinhardt, or you're making a concerted push with a lot of healing and shields and so on, that you are really ready to break the front down, because all their defenses are going to be geared towards this particular choke point. Instead, I've also seen a lot of teams get actually bogged down in this corridor here. This path isn't that great for the attacking team. You can, of course, use Tracer to get across this. You can use a lot of characters to do that. Lucio can wall ride. Reaper could just teleport. Widowmaker can grapple up here. You can get a lot of people back here if you so desire, but that's only for really classes with movement options. The rest of the mere mortals will have to go through this left side here, and as you can see, this is right next to the main entry choke, so you're just going to be equally exposed. Instead, you should try and look to getting set up on this side, as this side has a lot more ground to play with. There's also a nice large health pack there, which is nice and easy to get to, so you can use that to help shore up your assault as you get entrenched in this area. Once you pass this wall, it gets a lot easier to start pushing onto the point. This point is actually kind of interesting in that it has terrain in the middle of it, and you can do a lot of cover play around that and use that nice and effectively. Oh, Numbani. Numbani is probably the largest map, and as such has a huge number of movement little tricks on it, most of which involve these catwalks and the various hops and jumps you can do between them, especially someone like Tracer. One of the most interesting and one of the best ones I do know is as follows. So, as you come out the spawn, you're going to have to go into the coffee shop. Unfortunately, this is often one of the hardest areas to get through, simply because teams do like to set up in here. There is a health pack downstairs, it's very easy for them to fight around. But once you're up here, it's very easy to get from here, and then hop across to here. This will circumvent this path here. You can also, if you shoot out this, just get across as an attacker, as a defender, but that's considerably less useful considering you should just be set up in this area in the first place. Still, nice little trick to get you through. Also, somewhat interesting of note is you can use 3 Tracer blinks to get over here, if you so desire. Again, 3 Tracer hops. Use another one to get onto here. You could probably get onto that, maybe. That might be a bit high. Yep, just a touch too high. Now, you might be asking what's the value of doing this as Tracer? Well, it's kind of actually an interesting question, because if you're fighting down here, and suddenly I have to retreat. Retreating up here is disgustingly safe. So that's kind of worth knowing. Getting to here is also very useful, because it does get you a shortcut getting up onto this. And this pathway here is very useful for getting behind defenses, especially for that last point, although you will start respawning through this pathway here when the payload reaches this checkpoint down here. Interesting to note as well, most people don't seem to realize this, this has 3 exits. Most people just default to this one. You can take this one as well, and there is this one back here, which takes you around the back. This is like an obvious path, but you'd be surprised how many people miss it. And you have this nice little area back here. Nice cliff you can shove people off. And an area you can fight here with the defender spawn here. This is a useful path to take because it gets you behind where a bastion's likely to set up, you know, around here, makes it very easy to get behind them. Bastions also do like to set up in this little spot here. Getting behind here is intensely useful, and I heartily recommend doing so. That's it for major sort of movement paths that you want to be taking. Of course, you know, you can just do Reaper teleports onto any of these very easily, and I hardly recommend doing so. You can also use this as kind of stepping stones for Junkrat or something if you can't just do the jump immediately up there, although you should be able to jump onto this, for example, fairly easily. So, Widowmaker, interesting places for Widowmaker. First and foremost, up here, absolutely incredible spot to snipe from. You've got to be careful when you're stood here, however, as your range of movement is severely limited. As you can see, just taking one wrong step and you will fall down. Most snipers do know. Yes, thank you, Widowmaker. As most snipers do know, having insufficient room to sort of hop juke left and right does make it very difficult. But if the enemy team is having a hard time removing you, you can just hold down this choke, and these areas fairly effectively. You are very vulnerable here, especially from people back here. You can, of course, reposition here to hold down here and here. Interesting to note, but not particularly useful, is you can get on top of this little gazebo, I guess, in the middle here. Not particularly a useful spot, however. Important to note, there is a balcony up here. I know a lot of people seem to miss this for some reason, and don't even seem to know that this exists. This also actually gives you access to this little roof here, and you can stand on top of this. You can also get even further up, if Widowmaker would care to grapple. There we go. And you can get on top of this building here. This can give you a little position up here, and it gives you a good view on the courtyard. It gives you a little bit of view into the road as well. Of course, the most obvious thing is this here. You can, of course, easily get through that as Widowmaker. There's an interesting spot here when grappling hook comes off cooldown. Oops, a little bit too far. Interesting spot here that you can use. It's better to use it and sort of wait and cover this area, get a few surprise kills before moving back through here. Nice and safe. You can try and get some snipes down here, but as you can see, it's really not worth so overly egging it, because yeah, you'll just fall off. You can hide behind here. Most people will not actually look this way, which is kind of interesting. So as they're coming out, you can get one or two perhaps easy shots, but you will be a complete sitting duck the moment they know you're there, and they will realize very quickly. Maybe a better spot for something like, you know, a Reinhardt or something, to just cower behind the back of that truck. Otherwise, you can stand on top of this. Can't stand on top of that door, unfortunately. But yeah, that's pretty much that for the first point. Not too many exotic movement options around here, as far as I'm aware. And of course, you do have the balcony route back here for the second point, which I just whiffed. This route does get considerably easier when you do take out the balconies, for example. Yeah, you can just hop across here. This is pretty well known, pretty well documented. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, it's fairly obvious. Unfortunately, you can't stay up there, as it is a sloped roof. Sloped roofs in this game is usually a sign that you're just going to slide off it. And that's about it for Hanamura. Oh, and of course, you can get on top of this. So, King's Road, probably my favourite map of the lot so far. There is some obvious things like going through here. Farah will nicely demonstrate for us now. You can simply go up here. This is actually a very useful route for Reaper, especially when they start pushing through here, as it lets you get behind them and you can deal a lot of damage in this area here. Is an interesting thing I do want to show off in this little area here, however, most people seem to miss, is that there is a platform here.
All systems checked out, ready for combat maneuvers.
Thank you, Farah. So yeah, you can actually stand on that platform there. That's kind of useful for a Widowmaker, for example. You can also use it as a Reaper. You can teleport from here to up here and perhaps get a surprise on if they don't see you stood blatantly obviously there. Next important area that I think people don't know about much for some weird reason, although it's fairly obvious, is this platform here. Really strong point to start the map from, especially from for a spammy character, where you can just fire a few shots down. You've already seen me perhaps do this with Junkrat, is stand up here and blast down people here. It also can be kind of cute as if you start here with, you know, Mercy Fire I've seen start here before, and someone comes out here, you just instantly annihilate them with a rocket or two. Even if they come out and they look hesitant, you can knock them even further out and just blast them into the open for you to get an easy kill. Of course, just to make sure that everyone is well aware of the layout of the map, because otherwise you're going to get ridiculously stuck on that choke point there. There's a pathway here that you can go through that leads into the back alley, and the back alley will take you up and around. There's of course a single tracer blink to get across here, just a little hop for Farah, no problem, with her jump jet. And the other thing really worth mentioning is coming back through this way. When you do get up here, and you can just run up here for normal people. You don't have fancy movement options, you can just take this entry here, that entry there, got the stairs, run through. It is a fairly long run, but it does get you behind the enemy team pretty effectively. I mean, you can get back here, where people could set up here. They usually like to set up in this corner here, however. And the way you get behind that is just go down here. Nice and simple. Some robot hate in London these days. And yeah, people do like to set up nests in this little box here, or set up around this area, and getting behind here is very useful at times. Finally, in the last 60 seconds, people really struggle against bastions in this area. I have no idea why. It's very easy for a Reaper, for example, to get around here, even if the bastion is shooting down there. You just run, basically, and then Wraith form through, goes through, and shoot him in the arse there. Nice and straightforward and simple. Path up here can be useful for Reaper again. Reaper can just jump, Wraith form through, Wraith form back, and get behind a Bastion, say, set up over here. Bastion set up over there can get spammed down fairly reliably. Bastion back here is actually a little bit harder. You can go up here as a Reaper, Wraith form down, and then sort of just run around here and get behind him here. And that's it for King's Row. And lovely Gibraltar. Lots of little cool ways around on this map, especially for a Tracer or for a Widowmaker, Reaper. Anything with a sort of a hopper and a teleport. Of course, you can just go across here. Can just go across here as well. This gets you up onto this area here. This is also true for the attacking team, just going back this way. If you do have like a particularly annoying Widowmaker in this area here, as long as you say, so let's say she's covering this exit here, just blink, blink, juke, 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 blink, and you're over with the Widowmaker. Assuming she doesn't hit you, well, you're in good. Also, if she's covering down here, for example, it's an easy way to get behind her, get the flank on. You can, of course, also just try and get through this door, or through this door, and go around, but that does put you vulnerable in the server room over there. One interesting pathway is 2 blinks and stop, and you can get across from this bridge. That will just take you over to here, and that is kind of cute and useful. Can also get to here. Then if you're really keen, you can get over to here as Tracer by jumping from there and doing 3 quick blinks. And you can start here. This isn't particularly useful. If someone comes out here and spots you, you're immediately dead, so yeah, just be careful doing that. Otherwise, not too many interesting pathways around here other than the obvious ones. If you want to start up there, you can get very easily over to there, for example. Getting back over to there is the important one, and we can just go up here. You can just hop onto these boxes and use that to get across to here. Use that to get across to here. Interesting one is, I've seen actually a Widowmaker stand on that box there. And that does give you a pretty good view of the balcony across there. It's a nice little sniping point. Otherwise, let's go to the next area. Oh, the shuttle hangar. A lot of hard fighting in here. A lot of hard fighting in there. Of course, you can just 2 blinks. Actually, you need 1, 2. That could save your 3rd blink. 2 blinks to get across here. It's actually me mapping this out mentally as well. And this can get you through the shuttle into this little back area here. This is useful. People like to turtle around this area, for example, so clearing that out will be very useful for your team. As Tracer, get back here, throw a bomb. You can do a lot of work. Other interesting ways to get around this area here. One interesting thing to note is this space. I'm actually curious about something. Let's test this. Just short. You should be able to do this as Pharah though. You could definitely do this as Pharah. No, just a bit short for Tracer. So Pharah can also go up and over here. You can just like drift your way over. And get to this point back here. Bastion likes to set up here, people like to set up in this area, so getting around here is critically important at times. You can also just go around it, like so, as Pharah. You might, if you're really good, be able to pull off like a Junkrat double bomb, but Jesus Christ, like you are just, it will be easy to just go up and over this pathway here as Junkrat, just land in them, instead of wasting your time trying to be ridiculously fancy. Other cool pathways while we're out here. There's a little area back there you can find in, most people don't bother with. This space up here is actually very useful. Remember that there is a staircase here as well. Most people don't know about this area.
They're almost out of time. Hold on and we win.
I've seen a Symmetra set a teleporter up, like back here for example, and people just don't know about this entire pathway. It's insane. Like look, I'm pretty much behind the enemy team. The amount of people who don't know about this area back here is silly, frankly. Otherwise, that's Gibraltar. So the more eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that I've picked Hanzo. Why would I pick Hanzo? Why would that be? Well, Hanzo actually has a very cool path on this map, and this is true for anyone with a movement ability. Getting through this choke point here is a huge pain in the ass, right? It's one of the hardest points to push through in the game right now, I would say. You can use the pathway back there to do it, but there's an even cleverer pathway that most people do not know about. We run back here. And, are you ready to get your minds blown? Whoop! Hey, look where I am. It's behind the choke point. It's really frickin' strong to do this. And you can do this with a lot of characters. I'm actually curious to test how many exactly we can do this with. It doesn't look like we can do it with... No, you can do it with Tracer, there's nowhere to go from. You could definitely do it with Pharah, of course, you could do it with Junkrat, you could probably do it with Reaper. Go get to the spawn. Fastest way to the spawn from here is probably this shortcut. So, as Reaper, you can use it to get... You can use Shadow Step to get up on top of this. You can imagine as Reaper getting behind this choke point is insanely good. This is a pathway people need to learn about. This needs to be exposed immediately because it is vital to breaking this choke point. Also, a lot of people do not know about this pathway here. Just for some weird reason, this will get you behind where a Bastion tends to like to set up over here. Very hard for him to defend all of this and this corridor at the same time. He either has to position here, cutting himself off for a last point of vision, or he's positioned here and he can't protect himself from this angle. Okay? Okay. Other cool pathways. This is actually a good point to defend from. You can get back here very easily. Most characters can. If you just run up the stairs there, you can also just use the movement ability to get up here, and this will let you see the payload as it moves along the road here. Very useful. I wonder if that guy has any significance. Probably does. Also interesting to note here, this is the defender spawn at the beginning, but it does change. And you can go through here as an attacker and use it to get back here. Kind of useful. Again, little side roads most people aren't using for some reason. Because people just don't like exploring overly much. Otherwise, final really sort of cool thing on this map. We want to go around here. pushing this last point up here, like around this corner and then going up to here, to this huge energy generator thing, that's pretty difficult to do, right? And that's kind of hard. If only there was some sneaky way that a devil like Reaper could get behind them. Oh wait, there totally is. Most people don't use this shortcut for some reason. You can use it just to get behind a bastion or something set up in this area here. Slap some shotguns into his arse, he can't do anything. The rest of the pathways are fairly self-explanatory. Don't think there's any other cool little secrets on this map. So, that's been a little tour of a bunch of maps and a few little routes that most people aren't utilizing for some weird reason. Get out there and use it if you're in the beta. Jesus. Stop running into choke points like morons. Thanks for watching to the end. I've been one amongst many. And I'm going to bring you more sort of useful content in the near future other than just stream highlights. Oh. Toodles.